What on earth? As I returned home after a month in the hospital, I was struck by an unusual atmosphere. The moment I opened the front door, I was hit by a strange odor I'd never smelled before. With a sense of foreboding, I rushed to my mother-in-law's bedroom. Despite the intense heat wave, the air conditioning was off, turning the room into a sweltering inferno. There, my mother-in-law lay motionless on the bed, in desperate need of care. Mother. Oh no. What I saw was beyond my worst nightmares. I married Tyler, my supervisor at the food company where I worked. Being 4 years older, he seemed like a dependable figure to me. Even after moving in with his family, I continued working in a different department. So this is my new mother, I thought. I had lost my own mother to an accident when I was in elementary school. That's why I felt a maternal connection to my mother-in-law, who had warmly welcomed me and treated me with kindness. Mother, please don't strain yourself. I'll take care of the cleaning, I'd often say. It's all right, dear. You always cook such delicious meals for us. Let me handle the tidying up at least, she'd reply. My father-in-law had already passed away, and my husband had lived alone with his gentle and modest mother until our marriage. Although she had a chronic illness that limited her activities, she had always taken care of her son. Naturally, I took over all the household chores out of consideration for her. But she, in turn, often tried to help me in various ways. Your mother is so kind. I'm truly grateful, I'd say to my husband. Is that so? I think all mothers are like that, he'd reply, never showing any signs of appreciation towards his mother. In fact, he believed that it's only natural for parents to take care of their children. Looking back, I remember how surprised I was when, after our engagement, he said, I want to move out of this old house and live apart from Mom. I hadn't known this side of him until then. Couldn't you be more considerate of your mother? She has a chronic illness, you know, I'd say. Having lost my own mother early and unable to care for her, I had some thoughts about my husband's continued childish attitude. That's why I proposed living with his mother when we got married. Fortunately, my own father was in good health and I had siblings in my hometown. However, this seemed to go against my husband's ideals, and he initially objected to my proposal. But I persisted. I'm worried about leaving your mother alone. We don't know when her condition might worsen. Fine, but you'll have to take full responsibility for her care. And don't you dare neglect the housework because of it, he grudgingly agreed. A few months after we started living together, my mother-in-law's chronic condition worsened, and she gradually lost her mobility. She became unable to live without constant support. I'm so sorry. Because of me, you had to quit your job. And now you don't even have time to relax, she'd say. Please don't worry about that. I take after my father and have a strong constitution. I have energy to spare, I'd reassure her. I made the decision to become a full-time housewife to focus on caring for my mother-in-law. It felt like a natural choice for me. After all, I had never minded taking care of others, having been a surrogate mother to my younger siblings at home. More than anything, I wanted to help my mother-in-law, who always had kind words for me. But my husband brought up the promise we'd made when we agreed to live with his mother. I absolutely won't help out. Remember, that's our agreement. This held true even when I was bedridden with illness and couldn't move. While the laundry piled up and I couldn't do the housework, he'd just sit there laughing at something on his phone. I understood that he wanted to rest at home after work, but I had things I wanted to say too. However, if we got into an argument, I knew my mother-in-law would feel guilty, thinking she was the cause of our discord. So I held my tongue and decided to handle everything alone, no matter how difficult it was. But my efforts took their toll, and I found myself in an unexpected predicament. I suddenly fell ill and collapsed while doing housework. I was rushed to the emergency room and had to be hospitalized for surgery. While my condition wasn't life-threatening, I was told I'd need to stay in the hospital for at least a month and a half, including pre-surgery tests and post-operative observation. I can't be away from home for so long. There's someone at home who needs care, I told the doctor, most worried about my mother-in-law. Being proud of my good health, I never imagined I'd end up in the hospital, so I hadn't even considered who would take care of my mother-in-law in my absence. I felt at a loss. But then, something unexpected happened. "Don't worry about Mom. I'll take care of everything," my husband said when he came to see me at the hospital that day. I couldn't help but let out a strange noise of surprise. "What's with that reaction?" "It can't be helped since you're not there," he said, sounding a bit annoyed, but he seemed to be seriously considering the situation in my absence. This was the same husband who had never once tried to help with housework, let alone caregiving, since we got married. I had been prepared to hear something like, "I have work to do. Who's going to take care of Mom? Who's going to cook?" So I was very surprised that he was taking the initiative. Work has been busy lately with people on maternity leave and such. "I won't be able to visit much, but hang in there," he said. "Okay, thank you," I replied. With that, he said he still had work to do, left some extra clothes and daily necessities, and left the hospital room. He really is dependable in times of need, I thought. Despite his gruff manner, just knowing I could rely on him to take care of his mother gave me enough peace of mind. After that, I settled into my hospital stay. Having worked at the same company before, I understood how busy his job could be, so I didn't find it particularly painful that he couldn't visit me. I had completely let my guard down. Looking back, I should have been suspicious of him at that time. Of the true nature he was hiding in his heart. After that, my surgery was successful. My post-operative progress was so good that I was able to be discharged about 2 weeks earlier than planned. Even the doctor was surprised, saying, "We didn't expect such a smooth recovery." Knowing I could go home early, I tried to call my husband. But no matter how many times I called, I couldn't reach him. He must be busy with work and caregiving, I thought. I decided to stop trying to email him and surprise him by just showing up at home. His eyes might pop out of his head in surprise, I thought carefreely, spending my last few days in the hospital. It had been about a month since I was hospitalized, and the season had fully turned to midsummer. I think I was so happy about returning to normal life that I was completely elated. I didn't even notice that I hadn't heard from my husband once in the days since learning I could be discharged. And so, I stepped onto our property for the first time in a while. It was noon, and the sun was beating down painfully. "Mother, I'm home." "Huh? What's this?" The moment I opened the front door, I sensed something was off. An unfamiliar stench hung in the air, and a heavy atmosphere lingered in the hallway. Despite it being a scorching hot day, for some reason the air conditioning wasn't running, and the room temperature was even higher than outside. It was like a blazing inferno. Horrible thoughts crossed my mind, and I rushed to my mother-in-law's bedroom. "Oh no! Mother, can you hear me?" My mother-in-law didn't respond at all to my calls. The scene I saw that day was beyond description. Calling it tragic would be an understatement. It's become a trauma for me. I finally managed to reach my husband the following night. "What have you been doing? Things are terrible here." Suddenly, an image of my mother-in-law's smiling face when she was healthy flashed in my mind, and I found myself at a loss for words. However, my husband seemed to have no grasp of the situation. "Hey, I can't hear what you're saying at all," he shouted. "Listen calmly. Actually, your mother." "Huh? Mom? She's on a trip with me right now." My husband on the other end of the phone seemed to be drunk, his speech slurred. "She was at home." "What are you talking about? And what trip?" No, I'm on a business trip. I wanted to tell you there's a staff member at the hotel who looks like Mom." My husband's tone suddenly became flustered, and he continued to rattle off a series of incoherent statements. Of course, I couldn't understand any of it, and I found myself raising my voice. "Explain it so I can understand." "Shut up. Aren't you in the hospital right now? You shouldn't be making a fuss in the hospital. Don't worry about Mom, she's fine. Bye." With that, he hung up on me unilaterally. He seemed to think I was still in the hospital. Moreover, he must have turned off his phone right after our conversation, because no matter how many times I tried to call back, he never answered. What is he doing at a time like this? I guess I have no choice but to do this. Panicking in this emergency situation, I decided to contact my husband's workplace to try to locate him. But another shocking fact came to light. "Huh? Is that really true?" The employee who responded also seemed confused, asking, "You didn't know?" My distrust of my husband grew exponentially. So, I used every means at my disposal to investigate what had happened while I was in the hospital. And I discovered an appalling truth. What happened to "Don't worry, I'll take care of Mom"? You've got to be kidding me. I might be able to forgive what he did to me, but I absolutely cannot forgive what he did to his mother. I decided to punish my husband for causing his own mother such suffering. After I made that decision, everything proceeded smoothly. Just 5 days after I filed a victim report, the police apprehended my husband, who was thoroughly enjoying his trip, and took him into custody. Apparently, He kept making a fuss about wanting to see either me or his mother, so the exasperated police called me in. Gripping my bag tightly, I entered the police station. "Hey, what's the meaning of this? Why am I under arrest?" My husband shouted as soon as I entered the visiting room, glaring at me through the glass. His hair was disheveled and his beard unkempt. He seemed to be under considerable stress. "You should calm down. People are watching," I said. As we were under constant police surveillance during the visit, my husband obediently took a deep breath when I prompted him. "There must be some mistake, right? What do you mean I failed to fulfill my duty of care for Mom?" "It means exactly what it sounds like," I sighed. My husband returned a surprised expression. "More importantly, you know about your mother now, don't you?" What I saw that day was the transformed figure of my mother-in-law. The room was even hotter than outside, and in that heat, she lay motionless in dirty clothes. That scene has been etched into my mind, giving me nightmares for a while. I heard about it from the police officer. It's really depressing, even though I never asked for this. How can you say such a thing? Hey, don't get so angry. Mom's still alive, isn't she? My husband was right. My mother-in-law had barely survived. However, when she was found, she was completely emaciated, her body reduced to skin and bones. When my mother-in-law was rushed to the emergency room, I was confronted quite harshly by the paramedics and doctors, a few minutes later, and it would have been too late. What was the caregiver doing? It must have been that dangerous of a situation. Your mother suffered alone for a long time. I don't know what to say to that. Besides, I hired a helper properly. Only once a week, right? For someone who needs care even to go to the toilet or change clothes, you're saying that fulfills your duty of care. That's right. My husband blurted out without hesitation. For a moment, I felt like I was dealing with an alien. Didn't you think you had done something wrong when the police took you into custody? No, not at all. By the way, who tattled to the police about this family matter? It wasn't you, was it? Yes, it was me. And the one who testified when I filed the victim report was your mother herself. My mother-in-law, after receiving treatment at the hospital, recovered steadily and was able to speak after 2 days. Apparently, you dumped all the caregiving on a helper you hired only once a week, and never came home even once. I heard this story from my mother-in-law. It seems my husband only took care of his mother on the first day when he brought me a change of clothes. He told his mother he was going on a business trip, and left the house the very next day. As a result, my mother-in-law had to spend time alone except for the helper's visiting hours. She managed to move her body somehow, but eventually became unable to move even a step from her bed. Your mother was still worried about you even in that state. She thought it couldn't be helped if it was a business trip. That's right. I was on duty. Or are you saying I should have skipped work? Does your company call taking time off to go on a trip alone with a young woman a business trip? I used to work for the same company, but I didn't know that. When I said this, my husband once again showed a surprised expression. How did you? Did you think I wouldn't find out? You really underestimate me. When I tried to contact my husband's workplace because I wanted to get in touch with him, the employee who responded informed me that my husband had taken about a month of consecutive leave. I was shocked because I hadn't been told anything about his vacation, and my distrust of my husband, who had kept such an important matter secret, increased all at once. So, based on information from a detective and his workplace, I pinpointed his whereabouts and investigated his movements since my hospitalization. It turned out that my husband had applied for leave as soon as my hospitalization was decided. He had hired a caregiver for his mother, perhaps thinking she might pass away while he was gone. If my discharge hadn't been moved up, your mother might have lost her life. As I glared at my husband, he surprisingly showed an exasperated expression. That's why I hired a helper in case of emergency. I'm not at fault. I had heard from my mother-in-law that the caregiver who came to her had done her job properly. The care records were detailed and meticulous, and the caregiver had even contacted my husband for confirmation. However, there was another problem. Did you ignore all her warnings? Apparently, given my mother-in-law's condition, once-a-week visiting care was far from enough, and the helper had suggested increasing the number of visit days. However, my husband didn't even try to listen and ended up unilaterally terminating the contract with her. How could your mother possibly live alone without any help? What were you thinking? Explain yourself properly. Well, the helper was always nagging about this and that. And it cost money too. That's not all. You were warned by the caregiver that the air conditioner was about to break down, but you ignored that too, didn't you? That's why the room was so hot. I confirmed all of this with the company the helper belonged to. By the way, the person in charge of my mother-in-law was told by my husband that he was switching to a place with more comprehensive service, so she never imagined that my mother-in-law would end up being neglected. You told me you'd take care of everything yourself, didn't you? Why did you make such an irresponsible promise? It's troublesome to be blamed for something that's already over. You're really noisy. My husband was muttering some excuses, but by now, his selfishness was so extreme that every word he said irritated me. And do you think I'm not hurt at all about your affair? Well, it can't be helped, can it? I couldn't see you as a woman anymore after you started taking care of Mom's personal needs. What did you say? Say that again. I shouted so loudly that the police officer standing behind my husband tensed up. I apologized for losing my composure and sat back down. I just thought it would be okay to let loose a little, my husband mumbled, avoiding eye contact with me. He then muttered, "I'm sorry," like a scolded child. He probably thought in his heart that he hadn't done anything wrong. But he must have used his cunning to say something apologetic, thinking my anger wouldn't subside otherwise and it would make a bad impression on the police. You didn't want to provide care because you wanted to have fun. And you think it's terrible for children to take care of their parents. Well, I don't know, he said, clearly trying to avoid conflict by being vague. At that point, I completely gave up on my husband. I understand you well now. I thought I might wait for you if you showed genuine remorse and willingness to atone for your crimes, but that's impossible. Feeling foolish for having even a glimmer of hope, I took out divorce papers from my bag. Divorce me. And be prepared to pay for your crimes against your mother, as well as compensation, of course. No, wait. Please, anything but that. What? What are you saying in this situation? I let out a big sigh, truly not understanding why he was resisting at this point when I was just stating the obvious. I just wanted to have a little fun. You're the only one I truly love. Believe me. I'm physically repulsed by you now. Who's going to take care of Mom if you're gone? In the end, aren't you abandoning her too? I felt nauseated by his rotten personality, bringing up his mother when pushed to the limit. Your mother has decided to move out and relocate elsewhere. What? What's that about? Where to? I don't know. She said she won't get in your way anymore, so you can go play as much as you want. Isn't that great for you? Having delivered the message my mother-in-law asked me to convey, I started to prepare to leave. Thank you for your time. The visit is over. Wait. I have a trial coming up. Can't you testify in court that I'm not at fault? I'm sorry. I apologize, so please do something. I have no intention of defending you, nor will I pay your bail. Reflect on your actions properly. When I said this, my husband looked at me with an expression that was a mix of crying and anger. Why are you doing this? You're not cute at all. No wonder you got cheated on. I don't care what you say. I never want to see your face again for the rest of my life. As I said this, I think there were faint tears in my eyes. Having lost a parent early, I had expected to understand each other with my husband. So I can't say it doesn't hurt to be betrayed by him. However, that day I was able to say everything I wanted to say. This is for the best, surely. As I wiped my tears with my fingers, strangely, I felt like I could let go of everything. After that, I quickly left the place, ignoring my husband who was making a fuss, banging on the glass of the visiting room. Later, my husband was sentenced to 2 years in prison. During his incarceration, we had a divorce trial, after which he was obligated to divorce me and pay $30,000 in compensation. I've heard that he's always sulking in prison. Moreover, his attitude is so bad that he's caught the eye of the guards. My mother-in-law moved to a countryside town with clean air. Thanks to the good things she's taking in there, I hear her health has fully recovered. She's made good friends and is living more vibrantly than before, and we still keep in touch regularly. As for me, I got a qualification and found a job at a care company. From now on, I want to help as many people in need as I can.